Part 17. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin. Chapter 161. Not only that, Xieting Zhou also bought cold medicine, Yunnan Bio, Entrythes medicine, antibiotics, etc. Although these things may not be used, they are for emergency use. The winter in the Great Yang dynasty is really cold. His room is full of charcoal. Otherwise, it is difficult for Xieting Zhou to imagine how this person can survive the long winter night. In addition, some preparations must be made. For example, Xieting Zhou must be a nobleman. The people of Quijia village only thought that Xieting Zhou was a nobleman, framed by the bad guys, and separated from his servants. This is why he fell into Quijia village alone. If it is a short time, it is okay. If Xieting Zhou does not appear for a long time, then some things will inevitably happen, which Xieting Zhou will never let happen. Therefore, Xieting Zhou directly selected a complete set of 4-piece bedding sets in the local shopping mall. All of them were made of silk. The quilt inside was the thickest pure cotton. He directly selected a set of red, and there were rich flowers outlined with gold lines blooming on it. If modern people saw this, it would definitely be rustic, but if ancient people saw it, it would be the most luxurious existence. Then he bought an electric hand warmer, which can be used for several days after charging once, which is very convenient. There are also candies that I ordered. Last time, I saw that the children in the village liked them very much. Not only did they like them, but they actually secretly collected the dazzling candy wrappers. This is the stuff of nobles. Now Xieting Zhou must choose things that nobles may have at that time, rather than things that surpassed that era, otherwise there will be problems. After picking and choosing, he bought a lot of things. Before 10 o'clock, all kinds of things were collected by Xieting Zhou and then stored in the 5 square meter space of the system. This space is actually as big as 2 beds, so there is no problem in putting these things. After finishing all these, Xieting Zhou went to the bedroom to rest at 10 o'clock. Wei Qiang was waiting for Xieting Zhou, but she fell asleep not long after lying on the bed. At this time, Xieting Zhou couldn't help but reach out and touch her side face, and then kissed it. Then he took a shower, opened the quilt, and fell asleep on the soft bed. At 5 o'clock the next morning, Xieting Zhou woke up, left a message on Wei Qiang's mobile phone, and then disappeared in the study. There was naturally no surveillance installed in their room, so Xieting Zhou's disappearance would not be filmed. When it came to Daong dynasty, Xieting Zhou appeared on the bed. It was still early. Xieting Zhou put all the bedding prepared by the Kui family on the table, and then put the silk suit he bought on it, from the softest bed cushions to the soft cotton quilts at the bottom. Don't underestimate silk. Silk is the warmest when it is close to the clothes. After doing all this, he sprayed perfume on the clothes he had bought before, and then placed them beside the bed, and then lay down in the quilt. The winter morning was very difficult, but the Kui family got up early, and the smoke from their kitchen was burning, so that the nobles could have a sip of hot tea and hot water to wash their faces. If it were in the past, in order to avoid wasting firewood, they would never do this. The villagers also enthusiastically sent firewood, and village chief Kui called on the strong men in the village. Some of them stayed in the daytime to guard the village to prevent thieves from invading, and another group of people went to the mountains to cut trees. Firewood is needed for burning. In the past, the firewood in village chief Kui's home was enough in winter, but with one more person, the kitchen never rested every day, so naturally the firewood was burned out, and now a strong supply of firewood is needed every day. En Niang was making soup, and Men Niang was the second son's wife. There was no one else in the kitchen at the moment. The men were outside fetching water to boil water, and some were waiting at the door of the nobleman for the nobleman's orders at any time. Sister-in-law, how long do you think this nobleman will stay in our house? After being served like this, the nobleman only ate a few bites of the table of food every day. The Kui family was naturally reluctant to waste the food. After Xietingzhou left, they shared the food. Moreover, the nobleman was particular about eating only 3 bites of a dish, and many dishes were simply tasted and not eaten. This made Men Niang happy to see the children eating recently, but she was also worried that the nobleman would stay at home for a long time and what to do if she could not afford it. It won't be long. The nobleman is just staying temporarily. It is a great honor for our family to be able to settle down in our house. And Niang can see clearly that this nobleman is not only good looking, but also has hands. You can tell at a glance that his fingers are not touched by women. He is also used to being served at home. Now he stays with them, probably just for the sake of novelty. The so-called bad guys must have been dealt with long ago, otherwise how can the nobleman wander around the village so leisurely? If he really hides from some disaster, he must be disheveled and dare not be discovered. How can he be like now? So In Niang just thinks that this nobleman is like some officials who like to visit incognito. I heard my father in the restaurant say that officials like not to reveal their identities and let people guess. If you accidentally offend them, you will die without knowing how. But if you are good and treat him as an ordinary person, he will be happy instead. They have nothing in Quijia village and nothing to lose. Now that the nobleman is willing to visit here, and Niang would be willing to entertain him for half a year, let alone a few days. That's true. If a person like the nobleman had not appeared at our door, I would never have found such a person in this life. Moreover, the puppy has been renamed by the nobleman. It is no longer called a puppy, but Yingxiu. Sister-in-law, if Yingxiu follows a nobleman from now on, wouldn't it mean that she will become a successful person? Men Niang was a little envious. After all, those who gave birth to children wanted their children to live a prosperous life and to become a good person. This nobleman was so gentle to the children in the village. He must be a kind person. If the child was, they followed him, and that was the best. Don't say such things. We can only guess what the noble is thinking. It's good for Yingxiu to win the favor of the noble, but the noble is going to leave. When the noble leaves, is it possible that Yingxiu won't be able to grow up well in the village? And Niang had heard many stories from her father. Most of the things happened in the restaurant. There were countless stories about those who clung to the powerful and ended up dead. And Niang only hoped that her son could grow up well and healthily. The two soon heard the movement at the door, and it was Kui Mingshan who came in carrying water. Hurry up and boil the water. The noble will wake up later. The tea will be ready. Are the snacks steamed? And Niang has long been used to Kui Mingshan asking questions in succession. After all, serving a nobleman requires more than talking. The Kui family even discussed whether to keep vigil for the nobleman, but the nobleman sternly refused. Everything is ready. Arrangements can be made when the nobleman gets up later. Hearing what his wife said, Kui Mingshan didn't care about the outsiders and looked at his wife gratefully. You have been really tired these past few days. Once your affairs are settled, I will take you to live with your parents' family for a while. He was so considerate that An Niang also laughed. Okay, let's get to work. This scene made Men Niang laugh. The Kui family is not a family that teases their daughters-in-law. Instead, the father-in-law and mother-in-law don't care much about their daughters-in-law. They only care about their sons. If they do something wrong, they will. It was all to remind the husband and not to say anything openly. Men Niang thought that she was lucky enough to be able to marry into the Kui family. Now that she has met a noble person, the Kui family will move to a higher level. When the time comes, she will bring her mother's family with her. Men Niang only feels that it is hard to work now. Not tired anymore. Kui Mingshan went out and went all the way to the noble's door, where he saw his two younger brothers guarding there. It snowed again last night, and they got up early to sweep away all the snow in the yard. At this time, their faces were frozen with cold, and they laughed when they saw their elder brother. Is your noble lord awake? Kui Mingshan asked in a lowered voice, and the two younger brothers shook their heads. Not yet. Kui Zhenshan envied his eldest brother for being able to stay with the noble man, so he was very attentive now. He didn't want the nobleman to give him anything, he just wanted to be around the nobleman and feel noble. Kui Yongshan on the side did not speak. He has always been a silent person and would only bury his head in doing things. Okay, when the noble wakes up later, the noble will be welcomed into the lobby, and then arranged to wash up. The room will be quickly cleaned, and Gongtong will also take care of it. It must be clean, and the noble will not be disgusted. This Gongtong was taken from the third daughter-in-law. It was a pretense that she brought it here. The red Gongtong is already worth 1 or 2 silver and is a real good thing. The third daughter-in-law used to be reluctant to use it, but now she gives it to her. It is used by noble people, and they are also very diligent in cleaning it every day. Well, brother, don't worry, it will be clean. Moreover, I will let Go Sheng go pick plum blossoms with your Yingxiu. At this moment, Kui Zhenshan was grateful for the plum blossoms around the village. Although he could only look at them but not eat them, it was of no use, but the nobles liked them. Picking some plum blossoms early every day will make the nobles feel happy. The children in the family are responsible for this task and get up early every day to pick plum blossoms. Kui Zhenshan was a little envious that his eldest brother's son was given a name by a noble person, but this was luck, and he was not envious of it. Good brother, he would also promote them in the future, so he was very enthusiastic. The two whispered a few words, and then heard the sound of someone getting up inside. They really wanted to help the nobleman get dressed, but they were clumsy and the nobleman was afraid that he would dislike them, so they could only wait outside and wait for the nobleman to shout. After Xie Zhou got up, he went to the toilet. There was no toilet in the Yang dynasty. In summer, you could go to the latrine, but in winter, you only had a toilet. Otherwise, if you go out in the ice and snow on such a cold day, you might get cold. After cleaning himself up, Xie Zhou came to the door, opened the door, and saw the 3 people who were freezing outside. He knew that these 3 people had been guarding outside early. Go in and clean up. The ointment on the table is for treating frostbite. Take some and use it. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 162. After the door opened, a cold wind hit his face. Even though Xie Zhou was well prepared, he was still frozen. Afterwards, Kui Mingshan led him to the lobby to wash up. It's not that he didn't wash up in the room here, but the room was too small. I really can't, so now the Kui family's lobby is the place that belongs to Xie Zhou. In the morning, everything is ready. He changed into a blue flying fish suit. There was no such style of clothing in the Great Yang dynasty, but this flying fish suit made Xie Zhou's tall figure look even more majestic. You must know that this kind of clothing is designed for ease of movement and for warriors. The azure blue fabric is a special smooth fabric, all printed with auspicious clouds. On the chest above, there is a weird-shaped golden arowana wrapped around the chest and arms. It makes people unable to take their eyes away. Not only that, Xie Zhou's belt was made of white jade, and he wore an embroidered spring knife on his waist. This thing didn't actually have an edge, it just looked good. There are black leather sleeves on his arms, and then there are golden steel sleeves on them. If he hits someone, he will not hurt himself anyway. In such a winter, the golden light is also glowing with coldness, making people feel dignified and indifferent. When this appearance appeared, the 3 boys of the Kui family were shocked. If Xie Zhou's black clothes before just made everyone think that he was a noble person, but now Xie Zhou's luxurious and oppressive clothes made everyone think that he was a noble person. Everyone felt like they wanted to kneel down and tremble. They had no idea when the nobleman had changed his clothes. With a pop, Kui Zhenchan still couldn't help but knelt down in front of the nobleman. He was really intimidated by such a fish and dragon. After kneeling down, he could see the nobleman's skirt, which was also covered with goldfish with dragon scales. Above, people dare not look directly. Kui Mingshan and Kui Yongshan also knelt down belatedly, feeling that this nobleman's identity was not only extraordinary, but also had the ability to appear and disappear. I am afraid that the nobleman's previous matters have been settled long ago. Those servants just saw the nobleman having fun in their Quijia village and did not show up. The clothes prepared for the nobleman at home were probably not used to the nobleman, so the matter of sending clothes came up. Don't kneel down, get up, I'll go wash up. Xieting Zhou is used to this kind of situation. He has traveled through many worlds. In the ancient world, it was normal for people to kneel down. If they knelt down on him, Xieting Zhou would naturally give these people some benefits. After he finished speaking, he walked towards the lobby. After walking more than 10 steps to the lobby, Kui Mingshan quickly got up and followed him. He then helped Xieting Zhou wash up, completely unaware of the shock of the two brothers in the east room. Oh my God! The nobleman's servants have prepared a lot of things. We thought we were good enough to the nobleman, but we didn't expect that the nobleman was accommodating us. When I saw the bright red four-piece suit on the bed, with the top-notch red and gold flowers entwined, I couldn't bear to take my eyes away. This was even better than the quilt at the bottom of my sister-in-law's box. Kui Yongshan didn't say anything, he just looked at the quilt. He was originally going to make the bed for the nobleman, but when he touched it with his hand and felt the silky feeling, he retracted his hand instantly with a look in his eyes. A bit surprised. Second brother, we can't touch this quilt. This quilt is very silky. Even with rough hands like ours, the silk may slip if we touch it. Why don't we ask the elder sister-in-law or the second sister-in-law to come over and clean it up for you? The third brother's rare words made Kui Zhenchan stunned for a moment, then he stretched out a finger and carefully poked the four-piece silk suit. With just such a gentle touch, he felt the cold and silky touch, and immediately his face was full of shock. Isn't this the brocade that brother said can only be found in the rich areas of Jiangnan? No. This is silkier than brocade and is easy to break. It is indeed something used by nobles. It looks soft and beautiful. Third brother, you are right, we can't touch it. If it gets damaged, it won't be worth it even if we pay it to the noble. Kui Zhenchan retracted his hand, then went to deal with Gong Tong, and asked the third brother to call his sister-in-law or his wife. He thought that his sister-in-law was busy cooking and probably didn't have time. Kui Yongshan hurried to the kitchen, and sure enough he called Men Niang. Although Men Niang did some work after she got married, most of it was needlework, and her hands were naturally not that rough. Now she saw the woman on the bed. I was also shocked by the four-piece silk suit. Such a good thing, I'm afraid I'll never see it again in this life. She couldn't help but reach out and touch the red brocade. Although she couldn't tell how it was made, the soft touch, cold and silky after being touched, shocked Men Niang even more. She looked at the golden patterns on it. It was not embroidered by hand, but woven directly into the fabric. It was even more incredible. The movements of the hands were even simpler. The prints on this are actually woven directly into the fabric during weaving. It's so lifelike. Even the embroiderers in the palace can only do this, right? As Men Niang, who is the best at sewing in the family, she has always been responsible for the clothing of her family. The clothes she made for Xieting Zhou this time also had her handiwork. Now after seeing this four-piece silk bed set, Men Niang knew, the best things prepared by their family are probably the most disdainful to noble people. Yes, Kui Yongshan continued to work with his head sullenly. I was afraid that he wouldn't be able to do the delicate work of making the bed. The second brother went to clean the toilet bowl. Kui Yongshan fetched water and planned to wipe the table in the room. When he saw my sister-in-law's dowry quilt, I took these things out directly. The nobles are not used to these, and leaving them here is an eyesore. In addition to the quilt, the clothes that Xie had worn before were also taken away. However, people in their family would never wear them. They were worn by noble people and will be kept at home as heirlooms in the future. Men Niang carefully arranged the 4-year-old set on the bed, and then saw the clothes piled beside the bed. They were of different colors, a red flying fish suit and a black flying fish suit. The simple patterns exposed on them were enough to make Men Niang mother didn't dare to look any further, but she couldn't move her eyes away. I will help you organize it, she comforted herself in this way, but when she unfolded the clothes, she was even more stunned. The style of the flying fish suit and the patterns on it shocked the embroiderer who was born in the village. I never thought that clothes in the world could have so many patterns, so colorful and impressive. From the collar to the last hem, the sophistication and softness of this garment made Men Niang feel that it was something extraordinary, and it even exuded a fragrance after picking it up. It is a woody pine fragrance, with the beauty of snowflakes, a quiet woody smell with a little sweetness, and when it reaches the nose, there are pine and fruity scents intertwined together, giving people a feeling of being under a pine tree. A feeling of envelopment. I know that noble people have the habit of incense. The clothes they prepared before were also scented with a simple scent of osman thus. Even that was already beyond the reach of many people. But now after smelling the fragrance on the noble people's clothes, Men Niang knew, it turns out that fragrance can be divided into many kinds. The smell that the nose smelled in an instant can be described by several adjectives, which made Men Niang suddenly feel that the noble person is really extraordinary. When Kui Zhenshan came back, he had already washed his hands again. His fingers were red from brushing the royal bucket, but the things used by nobles must be clean, and he didn't mind at all. Erlang, let's see if we can ask the fourth uncle in the village to make some wooden gifts today. These new clothes of the nobleman are very delicate. If they are piled up for a long time, they may leave creases. Today, I want to ask more people in the village to help. It's better to make a few as soon as possible. This piece of wood is a clothes drying rack, which is usually found in ancient fabric stores. Households usually don't prepare this. Of course, rich people may not necessarily do it, but they will still make it. Okay, I'll let fourth uncle do it now. These are all sent by the nobleman's servants. Although I haven't seen these servants, there are so many things but there is no movement outside. I am afraid that the nobleman's servants are not ordinary people. For I put these things in the room so as not to disturb you, we must take care of them for you. Kui Zhenshan explained to his wife, and felt that what he said was right. His eyes fell on the flying fish suit, and he couldn't take his eyes away. Just when he saw the appearance of the nobleman wearing it, he was already rich and handsome, and now he saw the new color. Simply reluctant to move his eyes away, but he also knew that such expensive clothes could only be worn by nobles. How could ordinary people like them afford to wear such delicate clothes? Yes, okay. Men Niang nodded and carefully folded the nobleman's clothes. The fragrance spreading in the air also made the two grown men move their noses, wondering what kind of incense it was and why it smelled so good. If Xie were here, he would definitely say, Dobeo's Dotty wood perfume worth 120 yuan, ha ha ha. After finishing this, Kui Yongshan was cleaning the table and saw the white porcelain bottle on it. He had only seen this thing in Wengxian town. At this moment, he saw the fist-sized white porcelain bottle and suddenly remembered the nobleman's words. The nobleman seemed to say this is an ointment for treating frostbite. Kui Zhenshan also walked over and saw this white porcelain bottle with a red paper on it. Kui Zhenshan recognized the black font. Frost, sore, ointment. Kui Zhenshan, who had learned calligraphy, read out these three words, and immediately reached out his hand cautiously, then opened the lid of the white porcelain bottle, revealing the white and tender ointment inside. This is the frostbite ointment given to us by the noble lord. It is said to be able to treat frostbite. Kui Zhenchan was so excited that Men Niang also came over, and then smelled the scent of chilblain ointment with a medicinal fragrance, and an indescribable floral fragrance, which smelled delicious. When Kui Yongshan saw this thing, he immediately thought of his wife. His wife was pregnant, but she still had frostbite on her hands and feet. The men were all rough-skinned and thick-bodied, but the women and children at home suffered greatly from frostbite. "I'll take this thing to Dad and see what Dad does with it. The nobleman's things are all good, and so is the ointment." Kui Zhenchan only thinks that the nobleman is the best nobleman in the world, because at a glance, it is clear that the ointment was specially given to them by the nobleman. Men Niang also nodded, remembering the frostbite on her son and daughter's hands, and her eyes were burning after taking a fancy to the ointment. Parents like them don't need it, but if their children can use such a good plaster, they can get through the winter well. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin. Chapter 163. Village Chief Kui has also met with Xieting Zhou in the lobby. He saw the flying fish suit on the nobleman and didn't know what this kind of clothing was. However, it looked like a warrior's clothing. He walked briskly and elegantly. It was different from the previous black robe, but the goldfish transforms into a dragon, which makes people dare not look directly at it, especially since the clothes are covered with flowers, which is definitely not something that ordinary people can afford. They had never seen this dress before, so it must have been sent by the nobleman's servant. However, the nobleman's servant did not show up, for fear that he would disturb the nobleman's enjoyment of farm life at their home. With such speculation in his mind, Village Chief Kui would naturally not talk too much. Especially now, Xieting Zhou has lived in Kui's house for several days, and no one knows his name. He is always called a noble person, and the names of noble people are not theirs. Something ordinary people can call. "My lord, it's sunny today. I plan to take the people in the village to Wengxian town to see if we can exchange these pearl bracelets for money for the villagers to spend the winter. I will also buy some necessary supplies for my lord. What do you think?" The next day is the famous New Year's fair in Wengxian town. Their place is different from many places. Although it is close to Shuifeng County, there are actually no big shops in Shuifeng County. Wengxian town, which is some distance away in Shuifeng County, was famous for hearing of immortals passing by decades ago. Therefore, the busiest shops in Shuifeng County are all opened in Wengxian town. Although it is said to be a town, in fact, people from the surrounding villages go there to buy everything. The largest jewelry stores and clothing stores are also there. Every time it comes to the New Year's fair, it's the busiest time there, and even wealthy businessmen who are not local come to Wengxian town to purchase goods, so if you want to sell this pearl bracelet, you still have to go to Wengxian town. You can make arrangements yourself. Since the things are given to you, there is no need to ask me. Today, Xieting Zhou is wearing a blue flying fish suit, and his whole person is even more unattainable and noble. He wears the same golden jade ring on his finger, and the hairpin on his head has also turned gold, matching this outfit. Village Chief Kui immediately knew that he should not disturb the nobleman with such a small matter, so he said again, "If the noble wants to go out and play tricks today, my second son can follow the noble and serve the noble. That child likes to play around the most, so he will definitely be able to serve the noble well." Kui Zhenchan also came in while he was talking. When he heard his father asked him to follow the nobleman, his eyes suddenly lit up and he was very enthusiastic about following the nobleman. After seeing the nobleman's situation, he knew that the nobleman would not stay in the village for long, so he naturally hoped to get some nobility from the nobleman. Well, Let's prepare the meal. Sieting Zhou nodded and asked someone to arrange the meal. Now in the Great Yang dynasty, Sieting Zhou also eats twice a day and does not eat afternoon. The morning meal and the lunch meal are very rich, but he can only eat some snacks after the afternoon. Even the daughter-in-law of the Kui family is good at making snacks. But you will get tired of it if you eat too much. Sieting Zhou put beef jerky in the space for himself. If he was really hungry, he would take a few bites. After the meal was set, Sieting Zhou ate alone in the lobby. Kui Zhenchan stood beside him, serving Sieting Zhou's meal. As long as the dishes Sieting Zhou took a look at, they would be brought directly to him for Sieting Zhou's breakfast. After village chief Kui and his eldest son Kui Mingshan went out, they saw his third son, who was not good at words, standing outside. The three of them went to the house on the west side, and then Kui Yongshan spoke. "Father, look, this is the frostbite ointment given to us by the nobleman. He said that after applying it, it can cure frostbite." First, he took out the white porcelain bottle given by the nobleman. Such a beautiful and clean white porcelain bottle made village chief Kui's eyes light up. He immediately stretched out his hand and picked up the white porcelain bottle. The workmanship of this porcelain bottle is so delicate, and it is so smooth when touched. I am afraid that just such a bottle alone costs thousands of taels. Yes, porcelain is still very expensive nowadays, not to mention exquisite and compact porcelain like this. Moreover, this is fine white porcelain, with no traces on it. If it is sold, it will be expensive at least 1,000 taels, and it's not silver, it's gold. Porcelain, brocade, and even tea are all things that only the nobles can afford. Ordinary people use pottery and the like in their homes. When he saw such beautiful white porcelain for the first time, village chief Kui couldn't put it down. The nobleman is kind-hearted. I am afraid that a servant came to help the nobleman yesterday, so I sent this ointment together. Father, we really met a nobleman. Kui Mingshan also understood the situation in an instant. From the beginning when the nobleman came to Quijia village, he was alone. The pearl bracelet he gave to his father at that time was his personal belongings. But now this white porcelain medicine suddenly appears, it must be because the nobleman's servant came over quietly, which made Kui Mingshan a little confused. Yes, brother, the bed items have been rearranged in the nobleman's room. They are things that are more expensive than silk and brocade. They are very soft to the touch. I asked my second sister-in-law to clean up the bed just now. My second brother and I dare not touch, fear of scratching. Although he doesn't like to talk, Kui Yongshan still wants to explain everything. Upon hearing this, village chief Kui's eyes immediately lit up. What else is there? It seems that the nobleman's matter has been resolved, and there are strong men patrolling the village every day and night. In this way, the nobleman's servants can easily deliver things without making any noise. This makes village chief Kui even more aware. The mystery of this nobleman, the more people see mysterious things, the more awe they will feel. This is the case with today's village chief Kui. In addition to quilts, there are also several sets of clothes, just like what the nobles are wearing now. I am afraid that only the embroiderers in the palace can weave such fabrics. The second sister-in-law said that the embroiderers in Jiangnan are very skillful and often give the emperor the queen makes clothes, and these goldfish turn into dragons. I am afraid that the noble status is not ordinary. Who among ordinary people would dare to wear a dragon on their body? Although the nobleman's costume looks like a goldfish transforming into a dragon, there is no guarantee that he is a real royal family. The Kui family were extremely excited at the thought of meeting a member of the royal family. In the general environment of ancient times, these ancient people were born with a sense of awe of the imperial power. Naturally, they would not casually use things that could only be used by the royal family like modern people. Such things as dragons were absolutely impossible to appear on ordinary people. Not only in this way, there is also the color of the clothes of the nobles. Ordinary people wear gray and linen, or they are simple dark colors. How can there be such bright colors? Indigo blue, black as thick as ink, and brilliant red. These clothes are definitely not something ordinary people can afford to wear or make. It may take craftsmen years and months of skill to make them. This matter is not easy to make public. Since there are servants delivering things to the noble, it proves that these servants are actually around Arquijia village. If the noble has any problems, I am afraid they will appear immediately. If the noble has anything in our village, the problem is that the lives of the whole village are at stake, so, third brother, after your brother and I leave, you have to serve this noble man well, you know. That's right, village chief Kui plans to take his eldest son and nearly 100 strong men from the village to Wengxian town to sell the pearl bracelets. With the strength of the crowd, he is not afraid of any problems. Father, don't worry, I will serve you well. Kui Yongshan immediately assured that he was very concerned about this matter. After explaining his son, village chief Kui went to say goodbye to the noble man, and then left the Kui family. People in the village had previously informed that going to Wengxian town was an important event and required good health, so everyone signed up enthusiastically. In the end, 100 strong men were selected, all of them strong men, and they arrived early waiting at the entrance of the village. I'll leave it to you all for these 2 days. Let's go to Wengxian town together, I'm sorry to bother you all. Village chief Kui was very friendly to everyone. When he spoke, everyone smiled and said it was no problem. Village chief, we are all in our prime, so we can do whatever the village chief tells us. Everyone put on the clothes they were used to, shoes suitable for walking, and they also brought dry food with them. If you go to Shuifeng County, you can walk there in 2 hours, but if you go to Wengxian town, you may have to walk from now until dark. Therefore, this is why Shuifeng County is larger, but Wengxian town is more prosperous. People all go to Wengxian town. Over time, although Wengxian town belongs to Shuifeng County, it is more economically developed than Shuifeng County. Various businessmen only stay in Wengxian town during the new year. Whatever they have, it was purchased in Wengxian town. Let's go, this is a long road. Before this, village chief Kui had not left the village in snowy conditions in winter for a long time. When walking on the road, there was the sound of snowflakes crunching under his feet, but every time everyone is smiling. A nobleman came to their village, and he said that he would repair their houses. It is winter now, and after the new year, the nobleman can repair their houses for them, and they will be able to live in good tile-roofed houses. Everyone is very happy. The best things in the house were given to the village chief, hoping that the nobles would use them. Xieting Zhou was bored playing in the village. In fact, he just looked at the plum blossoms, and then admired the ice lake and the like. However, the surroundings were all white and there was no green at all. Even the fields were covered with snowflakes. This made Xieting Zhou realize later. I remembered that since I came here, I haven't eaten vegetables or the like for several days. To be precise, they are vegetables. What Xieting Zhou was given in winter were all kinds of meat dishes, or marinated bacon and pickled vegetables, which had no taste at all. Don't you always eat vegetables in winter? Xieting Zhou was a little curious, and Kui Zhenshan beside him suddenly realized what the nobleman meant. Noble sir, we can't grow these fresh and tender vegetables in winter. The weather is cold, even if it snows, we can only survive by storing grain. How can we eat vegetables just grown from the ground? But looking at the nobleman like this, he might be able to eat it. Kui Zhenshan thought, what kind of land can grow tender vegetables that can be eaten in winter? Xieting Zhou suddenly thought of something and asked. Then your village has soybeans and mung beans. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 164. There are these, but noble man, these are low crop grains and are usually used to feed livestock. Our village only has one cattle, which is used to feed beans. Normally, the beans grown are sold for some money. Come. Kui Zhenchan said, after all, beans cannot be used as a staple food. They will make you feel uncomfortable after eating them. In the early years, I heard my father say that in years of famine, even if the family has a surplus of food, they will be full just by eating beans. Swell and die. Therefore, beans are eaten by cows and horses, but it is better for people to eat less. I heard you say that everyone in this village has a cellar, but why? Otherwise, Xieting Zhou would not be able to live a life without worries about food and drink. In addition to some things that need to be frozen, in this village, they also have cellars to store some special items, and the temperature in the cellars is high, which can probably the constant temperature is almost 20 degrees, which is quite high. Back to your lord, these cellars were dug by my father when he was young and he led the villagers. Banditry was serious at that time and there was burning, killing and looting everywhere. The common people had no power to resist, so the village dug these cellars and hid when thieves came. After entering, the emperor came to the throne, and the new emperor sent troops to suppress the bandits. Only then did the people have a good life, and now they can live a comfortable life. Kui Zhenchan couldn't even imagine the kind of days his father mentioned in the past. After hearing this, Xieting Zhu's face was still extremely indifferent. He had long been accustomed to this kind of cruelty in the ancient environment. It was because of the underdevelopment of technology that the suffering of these people had long been prevented. There was no way to overchange these, because technology they all evolve slowly in the wheel of history, and it is impossible to reach the sky in one step. Take me to see the beans. He was just giving instructions. Even though he didn't know what the nobleman was going to do, Kui Zhenchan still obeyed Xieting Zhu's instructions and took Xieting Zhou back home. He asked the third brother to be afraid of the charcoal fire and let the nobleman rest in the lobby first, and then hurried to get it. Some beans come over. Noble sir, you see, these are the beans of the village. 3 types of beans were brought over, large soybeans, black beans, and mung beans. They seem to have been harvested this year and seem to have not been sold yet. Just use soybeans and mung beans. Xieting Zhou said, and then the 2 Kui brothers didn't ask any more questions. They just did whatever the nobleman said and picked out the bad ones and the ones that looked inappropriate from the 2 pots of soybeans and mung beans. Leave something beautiful inside. The nobleman said that he should soak it in water. Although he didn't know why, no one asked why. Since the nobleman said so, it certainly makes sense. In the evening, and Niang naturally prepared another sumptuous meal. Xieting Zhou tasted a few bites, and then went to rest. The rest of the meal was naturally given to the remaining children of the Kui family. Xieting Zhou didn't like people when he was resting. Excuse me, the Kui brothers didn't go to guard either. In the small hall next to the kitchen, Kui Zhenchan, the second eldest son of the Kui family, was holding his son. He smelled the sweet scent of his son and immediately felt very good. When his father left, he said that the ointment of a noble person must be a precious thing. Those of them, big and rough, can't use it. It was a pity, so he only ordered it to be used by the women and children at home, which made Kui Zhenchan and Kui Yongshan happy. On the table, and Niang was taking care of the 2 children while the eldest son beside her was already eating. Men Niang also looked at her son being held by her husband, and felt that life was so good now. The one who has not yet given birth is Kui Yongshan's wife. She is pregnant. The family is afraid that she will offend the noble, so they do not let her come out to see more. The noble has rested, so they bring her here to eat. The food and meat left by the noble recently it was complicated, but the food the third daughter-in-law was eating was very nutritious, and her eyes were shining. Mom, can you please stay at our house forever? It would be great if you don't leave. I can always eat such delicious food. Men Niang's son looked at his mother in his father's arms, and what he said was ridiculous. "What are you talking about? The nobleman just came here to play, and he will leave when he is bored." You kid. Kui Zhenchan knew that the nobleman just saw that their village was sparsely populated, and he was afraid that he would stop here for a while, at most a few years going to leave. But a few months were enough to bring about a big change in their village. Otherwise, if they don't serve the nobles properly, and the nobles find it boring and leave early, it will be the loss of Kuijia village. Your Majesty asked me today if I have ever gone to school. Mom, can I go to school after the Chinese New Year? Kui Yingxiu asked her mother. As soon as these words came out, the entire dinner table became silent. In fact, it is not that the Kui family has never attended school, but that was a long time ago. The eldest, second, and third child of the Kui family have all attended school for 1 or 2 years. It's just literacy. If you want to take the merit examination, the Kui family can't afford it for more than 10 or 20 years. Of course, after the new year, Mom will ask Grandpa to find a school for you, okay? The eldest son also went to school for 2 years, but later the tuition was too expensive, so he dropped out. And Niang felt uncomfortable, but she knew that what the nobleman said was right. Only by going to school can children have a way out. The atmosphere in the small hall became dull, and everyone stopped talking. In the distant Wengxian town, village chief Kui led everyone on a day's journey, and hurriedly entered Wengxian town at dark, and then people there were too many, and I couldn't stay in any inn. I had to find someone to cover my head with a tile. It only cost a penny for 100 people. It can be said to be a great saving. Early the next morning, no one had time to eat, so village chief Kui took his son to visit his wife's family. The father-in-law and mother-in-law had already passed away, but the brother-in-law who was left behind had established a firm foothold in Wengxian town. Now he is considered a housekeeper in Jinlu, so village chief Kui came to his door immediately. Brother-in-law, Zhao Guangqing was shocked when he saw his brother-in-law coming over early in the morning. It wasn't the official New Year yet, so why was his brother-in-law here? Their family has a relatively good relationship. Zhao Guangqing was able to enter the Jinlu in Wengxian town because of the money taken by village chief Kui. After all, he was the head of the village, so he still had some ability. Guangqing, I'm here today. I need your help with some things. Village chief Kui was not polite to his brother-in-law, and was quickly welcomed in. He asked his wife to quickly prepare tea for his brother-in-law. The two were originally in the lobby, but seeing his brother-in-law's serious expression, they went to the study to discuss business. Brother-in-law came here this time, but what's the trouble? Why didn't sister come? To have his brother-in-law show up at his door so early in the morning, he must have been here yesterday. Zhao Guangqing was a little scared when he didn't see his sister. Your sister is safe at home. It's full of wind and snow outside. I don't want to leave her running around. Coming here to find you this time is not your sister's business. It's a big deal for our Kuijia village. What do you think of this? They are both family members and have known each other for so many years. My son also lived in his brother-in-law's house for a long time. When he was a child, he would come from home for several months every year. Village chief Kui regarded his brother-in-law as his son, so he was naturally close to him. He took out the purse from village chief Kui, and then took out the string of pearl bracelets that seemed to be covered with soft light, which immediately made Zhao Guangqing stare straight in the eye. This is a pearl that can only be produced by the seaside, right? Such a rare thing can actually look so beautiful. Carefully reaching out his hand, Zhao Guangqing wiped it on himself twice, then took a handkerchief, caught the pearl bracelet, held it carefully in his hand, and then looked at it carefully, judging from the shape of the pearls. You can feel the color and touch. This is a real pearl. Pearls are cold and smooth, most suitable for the skin of noble people. The skin of noble people is white and tender. Even if it is lined with such pearls, it is even more noble. The pearls in their jinlu are collected from all over the world. Pearl clams are not necessarily in the sea, some are. Sometimes there are pearls in riverbeds, but they are very rare and vary in size. If you want to find a pearl as beautiful as the one in your hand, each one is the same size and can be made into such a beautiful bracelet, it is definitely not something ordinary people can find. Good stuff to get your hands on. This is a real pearl bracelet. Judging from the size, it seems that it can be worn by both men and women. Brother-in-law, where did you get such a good thing? How does it have anything to do with the village? Kwajia village is poor and hard-working, and everyone is enthusiastic. Zhao Guangqing knows this, but it is useless these days. People in small places have been like this all their lives, farming and raising children. Who is not like that? After all, my brother-in-law is the village chief and can barely live a comfortable life. Otherwise, how could the Zhao family marry their daughter from the town to Kwajia village? To tell you the truth, Guangqing, our Kwajia village has now met a nobleman. The nobleman came here to study and saw that the people in the village had no roof to cover their heads. He felt pity for him, left this string of bracelets, and left, saying he asked me, the unsatisfactory village chief, to repair the houses in the village. Seeing that the new year is approaching, there are many big businessmen in Wengxian town. This time, I came here to find you, Guangqing, for this pearl bracelet. A buyer, estimate the value. Village chief Kui knew that this thing was expensive. He heard from his son that one pearl cost 1,000 taels of silver, and the beads on this pearl bracelet were all the same size. The whole string was even more pleasing, and there were no other signs of noble people on it. Better to buy, but I don't know what the price is. Zhao Guangqing was also extremely shocked when he heard this. He was really shocked by the nobleman's big hand. He stared at the pearl bracelet in his hand with his eyes widened. Usually, pearls are as big as a child's fingernail, and one pearl is worth 1,000 taels of silver, and some of them even look bad. But now, every pearl on this bracelet in my hand is as big as a child's thumbnail. Such a size, and the color is soft and bright without flaws, each one is round and shiny, and it feels completely the same. Not to mention this string of bracelets in Wengxian town, even if you want to get it in the prosperous land in the south of the Yangtze River, you can sell it for a sky-high price. This thing is precious, precious because of its perfection. All the beads are exactly the same and have the most rounded shape. They are worth a lot of money when sold individually. Now that they are strung together, the price will rise even more. After all, it is easy to find a round bead, but it is difficult to find identical beads one after another. It will naturally take a lot of effort to make such a bracelet. Village Chief Kui also looked serious and said, "Of course I know that this pearl bracelet is worth a lot of money, but if it goes outside, I'm afraid we won't be able to protect such a good thing. Guangqing, please give a rough estimate of the price and see if you can find it in Wengxian town in the next few days." To the buyer. It was a pity for Zhao Guangqing to hear what his brother-in-law said, but he knew that ordinary people like them couldn't protect such precious things. The best way now is to take action in Wengxian town. There just happened to be a lot of big businessmen coming and going recently, and there is a mix of good and bad, so naturally they can get out. This pearl bracelet is so perfect that it's probably worth 10,000 gold coins. In the past few days, traveling merchants have come to Wengxian town. I'll look for someone to see if anyone is interested in this pearl bracelet. After all, not everyone can afford 10,000 gold coins. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 165. At this time, Kui Mingshan was shocked. He had learned a lot from his uncle before, so after seeing this pearl bracelet, he just thought that one bead could sell for 1,000 taels of silver, so this pearl bracelet could be sold at least. It's worth 1,000 taels of gold, But I never thought that I was stunned when I heard the direct words of 10,000 taels of gold directly from my uncle's mouth. Village Chief Kui had actually expected it, otherwise he would not have brought so many strong men from the village over. Not only did everyone come over, but they also secretly hid the kitchen knives at home in their chests. If any problems occurred, then if you really encounter gangsters and harm people in the village, then the money will be used to support their wives and children. But Village Chief Kui didn't expect that this pearl bracelet had surpassed 1,000 taels of gold and turned out to be worth 10,000 gold. How could it be sold from Wengxian town? Such precious things can only be sold in the wealthy places in the capital and south of the Yangtze River, right? He felt inexplicably depressed, but Zhao Guangqing on the side lowered his voice mysteriously. But brother-in-law, it's a good idea for you to come this time. This year is special. The spring after the new year will be the Queen Mother's 60th birthday. This is the birthday of wealth. Since last year, many traveling businessmen have come to various places to look for rare and antique things. I heard from the boss of our Jinlu that our Wengxian town has attracted many people to come to ask for offerings because of the legend of the past. This time, it is said that the caravan of the Xue family, the royal merchant, also came. If we can bring this, if you sell good things to the Xue family, you won't have to worry about not being able to sell them. Yes, he is a businessman after all. Zhao Guangqing still has a little bit of information that others don't know. This ordinary person doesn't know that the Queen Mother will hold a grand birthday party next year, but the business people know it. So I heard that Jiangnan there is a huge red coral tree nearby that has been transported back to Beijing. It is said that the red coral tree is a real treasure worth 50,000 taels of gold. The Xue family, the royal merchant, Village Chief Kui was confused, but then he came to his senses. Then if we, the common people in Chengdu, meet such a person, it's hard to say whether we can get the money back. After all, even if Chief Kui is a village chief in the village, he has no ability when he gets to the town, let alone when he meets an imperial merchant. Don't worry. The Xue family came here specifically to find a birthday gift for the Queen Mother. Although they are said to be royal merchants, if they are guests at a banquet in the palace, I am afraid that even the imperial merchants do not have the qualifications. They are just for the sake of those in the palace. Empress Xue, this treasure was given to Empress Xue to congratulate the Queen Mother on her birthday, so it can't be too outstanding or too bad. The beads on this string of pearls are round and round, perfect for birthday banquets. The Xue family will definitely like it. At this point, Zhao Guangqing paused. The Xue family will never covet such a thing. Who can become an imperial merchant without these 18,000 taels of gold? Zhao Guangqing followed the owner of the shop to Jiangnan before. At that time, he was lucky enough to see these rich families fighting against each other. The Xue family was the most famous wealthy businessman in Jiangnan. 10,000 taels of gold was nothing to them. If they could just ask for it, the Empress Dowager's favor would allow Empress Xue to take a further step, and she would be willing to pay any amount of money from the Xue family. Businessmen all adhere to the idea that one more enemy is worse than one more friend. Although there are also those who commit crimes, like the Xue family, if they are targeted by others, let alone the emperor's merchants. The position, let's just say it's Empress Xue in the palace, I'm afraid she'll have to suffer. When one is prosperous, both are prosperous, and when one is harmed, both are harmed. Therefore, when he heard this in the early years, Zhao Guangqing remembered it clearly. Then how do we find this imperial merchant? They are just ordinary people, how can they come into contact with such people? This is the difference in status. In the ancient environment, status directly fixed the class, so if you want to see noble people, you don't just have to meet them. That's not necessary. If my brother-in-law trusts me, I will report the matter to the shopkeeper of Jinlu and let the shopkeeper pull the strings to sell this treasure. Jinlu will charge some consignment fees, and no one knows about this item. Where did it come from? This is what Zhao Guangqing dares to say. The main reason is that Zhao Guangqing married the daughter of the boss of Jinlu. He has good looks and a good talk. He was also literate after going to Jinlu. Naturally, he went back and forth and was attracted by the boss of Jinlu. Married to a daughter, even though she is a concubine, she is still considered the boss's son-in-law. Now she is able to handle some important things in Jinlu because of this status. During the holidays, Zhao Guangqing always takes his wife to visit his father-in-law. Of course I believe you, but this thing is very important. This time I came here with hundreds of villagers, and they all live outside. Guangqing, please get it done as soon as possible. We still need to hear the news. I will leave Fairy Town after purchasing some things. Although wealth and silk are attractive to people, Zhao Guangqing is the child he has grown up with. Although he is talkative and naughty, he is a good boy who is devoted to his family. He has such a sister and brother-in-law above him, so he will not treat him badly. When Zhao Guangqing saw that his brother-in-law trusted him so much, his face suddenly burst into smiles. It doesn't matter. If the people in the village don't have a place to live, and there happen to be a lot of houses around me, I'll ask to see if I can rent it to my brother-in-law for a few days. This way, everyone can be together and it will be safer. When I get there, I sold this pearl bracelet to a noble person, and with the money, we can all go shopping together for the new year. Arranging people directly to his door, or even around his own house. Zhao Guangqing is a smart man. He took something as valuable as his brother-in-law. Without saying anything, his brother-in-law said that everyone in the village was afraid that everyone in the village knew about this valuable item. In order to secure there, it's better to keep your mind at home and wait for things to be released, so that everyone can rest assured. Otherwise, with so many people, if something happened, Zhao Guangqing felt that he could be torn apart. The brother-in-law was naturally reluctant to part with him, but the people he brought with him did not care about friendship with him. Okay, everyone naturally trusts you, so you can help me ask. This time, my brother-in-law brought out all his family assets. In order to sell this pearl bracelet, village chief Kui really brought a lot of money here. After all, accommodation and food all cost money. There are hundreds of people and we can't let everyone go hungry. Yesterday, he brought dry food, but the dry food is only for 2 days. Who knows how many days we will stay here? Okay, brother-in-law, then I will take Mingshan to ask. Lao Zhang from the house next door is the most familiar with the neighbors. Then I will ask Mingshan to follow Lao Zhang to handle this matter. You can rest first, and I will go to Jinlu first trip. Village chief Kui was naturally relieved that Zhao Guangqing was doing things, so he took a rest at Zhao's house. Zhao Guangqing and Mingshan quickly found a new place for everyone to stay. 1 room for each family, 3 copper coins a night, everyone willing. Of course, this is guaranteed by Zhao Guangqing. It is absolutely impossible for a stranger to have such ability. Wangxian town is doing things in a hurry here, and Xieting Zhou has also woken up again. Last night, he had asked someone to cover the soaked beans with gauze and put them in the cellar. As long as they were watered twice a day, bean sprouts can be grown in 3 days. This method is simple. Xieting Zhou either wants to eat a bite of bean sprouts for himself, or he just wants to make some income for the people in the village. The money he gives is nothing. Sooner or later, it will be spent all day. If there is someone in the village who can make a living, if you make progress, then after you leave, the people in the village can live a good life. After getting up, he was served again. The table was full of food, which was different every day. Xieting Zhou was used to it. After finishing his breakfast, he went out to play. I have to say that although it is a farmhouse, it has a unique flavor, which makes people stay here. Comfortable. After the accommodation matter was settled in Wangxian town, Zhao Guangqing hurried to the Jinlu. After saying hello, he went directly to the 3rd floor of the Jinlu, and then found a box that looked very expensive inside. After all, a man becomes richer by wearing clothes, riding by a saddle, and putting the pearl bracelet in a red sandalwood box. After doing all this, I asked the waiter and found out that my father-in-law was already settling accounts in the study upstairs, so he hurried upstairs. When you get to the door, knock on the door. Come in. Jo-chun inside knew it was Guangqing just by the knock on the door. He liked this son-in-law quite a lot. Both of his legitimate daughters married far away and went to other places. One son-in-law even became a 7th-rank official. It was true that he was very proud, but the two sons-in-law could not be seen or touched, unlike the husband of this concubine, who came over with a wave of his own hand, and was a bit more filial than his son. As soon as Zhao Guangqing entered the door, he smiled all over his face. Everyone's feelings are related to each other. Zhao Guangqing was taken care of by his father-in-law, so he was naturally treated like a biological father. "Dad, I found a good thing, and I brought it here for you to see." "No wonder this day of rest has come," Jo-chun said with a smile. "What good thing? Can you take out all the red sandalwood boxes in the warehouse to make linings?" This golden building belongs to Jo-chun. Jo-chun will never forget anything he sees. Naturally, he knows that the box his son-in-law is holding belongs to him. "Dad, you are really discerning. Didn't I want to use that treasure to complement it? You have already said that a man relies on his clothes and a horse relies on his saddle. This precious thing naturally needs the most precious box. I heard that I've been worried about finding a gift for the Shui family of the imperial merchant recently, and my father will definitely like this. In fact, it means to please others and make more friends. Some precious things are collected as heirlooms by wealthy families and are usually not taken out. This time the Shui family was looking for a birthday gift for the Queen Mother, and Jo-chun naturally wanted to do something. "Oh? Let me take a look." Jo-chun also became curious. Zhao Guangqing placed the sandalwood box on the table and opened it gently. At that moment, the soft luster of the pearls was so beautiful that Jo-chun's eyes widened and he was surprised by such a good thing. Arrive. Pearl bracelet. And each one of them looks exactly the same. It can be said to be a rare treasure. Seeing this good thing, Jo-chun instantly felt that if this thing were given to him, the Shui family would definitely be satisfied. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin. Chapter 166. Where did you get this kind of treasure? Jo-chun naturally knew about his son-in-law's situation. If someone really had such a good thing, how could it end up in the hands of his son-in-law if it wasn't delivered to their Zhou family golden house? I'm afraid it has something to do with my son-in-law. Dad, I won't hide it from you. This is a gift from my brother-in-law. For this string of pearls, my brother-in-law brought hundreds of people from the village to our Wengxian town in order to take advantage of the new year to string this string of pearls on their bracelets. They are all his own, and Zhao Guangqing will not lie. After all, if this matter is investigated, it will not stand up to the investigation. Oh? I remember that your brother-in-law is the village chief of Quijia village. Now at the end of the year, he has come to Wengxian town? Where did this kind of thing come from? I am very tempted by this pearl bracelet, but I still have to ask what I need to ask. There was a nobleman who went on a study tour and arrived in Quijia village. At that time, the nobleman saw that there was no tile to cover his head in Quijia village, so he left this pearl bracelet and asked his brother-in-law to exchange some money for repairing houses in the village. That's why he came to Wengxian town with great force. Here, you came to me first. If you get such a good thing, I will naturally let you take care of it first. What Zhao Guangqing said was heartwarming, and he also explained the origin of this thing clearly, which made Jo-chun less suspicious. This pearl bracelet is really very delicate. It is even more round and round when you hold it in your hand. It feels very comfortable to touch, and there is no family mark on it. It seems to be an ordinary treasure. This Kui village is probably lucky. This I just met a noble person and got such a good thing. In this case, Jinlu accepted this good thing. After 2 days, the Shui family of the emperor's merchants came over and presented it. It will definitely win the jackpot. The Shui family of the emperor's merchants is the richest family in the south of the Yangtze River. This pearl hand, I'm afraid it's worth tens of thousands of dollars. The price he predicted was similar to that of Zhao Guangqing, so he felt comfortable and said immediately, "Dad, my brother-in-law said that if this pearl bracelet goes out in our golden building, it will be sold on consignment, and we will charge you as much as you can. Without you, Dad, no matter how good the item is, we ordinary people can't sell it." "What price?" Zhao Guangqing's words were flattering, but more sincere, because some families were dilapidated and they were unwilling to sell their precious things outside. This is moral integrity. But if ordinary people get good things from nowhere and sell them, it doesn't matter. Let alone being slaughtered a few times, it's normal for the things to be taken away and driven away by you. In an environment like this in ancient times, everything was connected by blood, and clan represented many things. If you wanted to fight alone, you might not be able to do it alone. Village chief Cao is looking for his brother-in-law, and Zhao Guangqing is looking for his father-in-law. These are the most intimate connections in the world. "You Heresium, are you afraid that I can steal your brother-in-law's things?" "Don't worry, as long as this pearl bracelet is liked, your father and I will have a relationship with the Shui family, and we will make a lot of money in the future. I will use this 10,000 gold, I'm not greedy at all. After the deal is completed, I'll give it all to your brother-in-law." Thinking of what my little daughter said, Kajia village is full of thatched huts. It is really very poor. Since the nobleman has this arrangement, he is afraid that he will go back in the future. If he still sees that kind of thatched hut, he should investigate it carefully and find out for himself. You also have to eat and drink. Wang Jin is very greedy, but if he offends the nobleman, their whole family will probably be crushed to ashes. To be able to produce such a precious rare thing, and to study here, and even to have a broad mind, he must be from a noble family. Jo-chun would not want to offend a noble family. It depends on what Dad said. Since I brought the things, I believe in Dad. Besides, Dad is a wise man in my heart, so naturally he won't look down on such a small amount of money. It has to be said that Zhao Guangqing really has such a clever mouth and does things neatly. Jo-chun was also happy to hear this, otherwise he would not be so fond of his youngest daughter's son-in-law. "Okay, I'm afraid the Shui family will arrive one after another tomorrow. The building is ready to welcome them. This matter can be done in less than 3 days. Since your brother-in-law is here, he will probably have to buy some goods when he returns to the village, right? Go and get 1,000 taels from our account and give it to your brother-in-law first, so that your brother-in-law can buy some goods first, which will save you 2 days of leisure and worry." Jo-chun opened his mouth with a smile. As a businessman, he could demonstrate his tact to the fullest. When Zhao Guangqing saw that it was done, he immediately nodded with a smile. "Okay Dad, then I will thank Dad on behalf of my brother-in-law. Although one is a businessman and the other is a village official, they cannot be reached without Zhao Guangqing's help." After he finished speaking, Zhao Guangqing took 1,000 taels of silver from the account in the building and went home. Village Chief Kui was waiting at home, but he didn't think anything would happen. He was very quick in thinking and understood that if Jinlu could sell good things to the Shui family this time, and if the Shui family could get the favor of the Queen Mother, then Jinlu would also be considered a good one. Got involved with the Shui family. Therefore, even if Jinlu sees this money, he will not covet it. "Brother-in-law, I'm back. When Zhao Guangqing came back, he saw his brother-in-law sitting there, putting the things in his hands on the table, and the sound of clattering was immediately recognized as the sound of the collision of money. "How is the matter?" village chief Kui asked. "It's done. My father has promised to matchmaking with the Xue family, but it will take about 3 days to settle the matter. The Xue family's caravan should pass here from tomorrow to the day after. I'm afraid it will have to pass by here. We have been repairing Wengxian town for 2 days, and this is just the opportunity." As Zhao Guangqing spoke, he also took a sip of tea before continuing. "Dad knows that you are here with hundreds of brothers, so he asked me to withdraw 1,000 taels of silver from the account, so that you can buy some goods with your brothers first, and I will give you the silver after the bracelets are sold. This is because there are relatives, so there is no contract signed, it depends entirely on mutual trust. For the ancients, doing business must be honest, otherwise it will take more than 10 years to save the reputation. Okay, I know your father-in-law is capable, otherwise he can't open such a big Jinlu in our Wengxian town. But now I have too many people, and it's not easy to visit your father-in-law. When the matter is settled, I will set up a table in Wengxianlu in Wengxian town and invite your father to drink. The largest restaurant in Wengxian town is Wengxianlu, and the most famous and popular one is Wengxian Brew. Therefore, every time the caravans come here, they will transport a large amount of Wengxian Brew from Wengxianlu and then transport it to various places for sale. Okay, then I'll inform my father that these are silver." After opening the package, the white silver inside was very eye-catching, which reminded village chief Kui of the noble who still lived at home. Although there were servants following the noble secretly, there was no one to serve him. Village chief Kui had an idea in his mind. "Then I will take the villagers to buy some things tomorrow. You just follow your father and don't worry about me." Zhao Guangqing saw that his brother-in-law had something to do, so he nodded without saying much. Kui Mingshan also told everyone about going to the market tomorrow. Although they were all grown men, they were also very happy to be able to visit the market. While these strong men in Kuijia village were looking forward to tomorrow's market, in the cellar of village chief Kui's house in Kuijia village, Kui Zhenshan went down in the dark to water the beans. The noble said that the beans should be watered twice a day. Now it has been watered once, and now it is the second time. After finishing, Kui Zhenshan left the cellar and continued to serve the nobleman. The nobleman was in a good mood today and taught his son to write. Although he wrote in the snow, Kui Zhenshan was still happy. The next morning, Kui Zhenshan came to the cellar early to water the plants. As a result, he was shocked. He took a candle and looked over. Before the candle went out, he saw that the beans had sprouted. The seeds sprouted in winter, which shocked Kui Zhenshan. Seeing that the beans in the 2 jars had sprouted, he really didn't understand why. What method did the nobleman use to make the beans sprout? Xie Tingzhou had heard the news when he got up, but he was not surprised. He went home once last night and accompanied Wei Qiang all night. He came here again in the morning and had figured out the rules of his system. Every time you shuttle between 2 worlds, the size of the system warehouse will increase. Maybe it's because you just started to shuttle, it takes 3 days, and you can shuttle once every 3 days. This gives Xie Tingzhou more time to understand the Great Yang dynasty. Keep watering and take it out tomorrow. Tomorrow will be 4 days, and the bean sprouts will be mature. Xie Tingzhou is still looking forward to it. Yes, noble Kui Zhenshan didn't understand why, but he just listened to the noble and didn't dare to ask more questions. During the day, Xie Tingzhou played in Kuijia village. When he met children, he would call them to ask questions. He had a further understanding of the poverty of Kuijia village. It can be said that in addition to normal farming, Kuijia village cuts firewood and sells firewood before winter. Generally, in autumn, rich families start to stockpile firewood. In some places, those who can burn charcoal can make charcoal and sell it. Some women in the village can do needlework and can also exchange dozens of big money a year. At most, everyone eats half full, and the life they live is not a good life. At this time, Sieting Zhou understood more clearly that village chief Kui had gathered the strength of the whole village to serve him, the nobleman, otherwise Sieting Zhou would not be able to eat such a sumptuous meal every day. And what was village chief Kui, who was side by Sieting Zhou, doing? He had brought more than a dozen people to the human market. The human market in Wengxian town was a place where animals and livestock were sold. In addition to pigs, dogs, cattle, and sheep, human traffickers would trade here, and they could transfer ownership directly, which was very convenient. Village chief Kui thought that the nobleman lived at home and his sons were clumsy, so he came here. After explaining the situation to the human traffickers, he bought two pretty and smart little girls. It is said that they were originally second-class maids in the mansion of a wealthy family. Later, something happened to that family, and these girls were sold out, which happened to be cheap for village chief Kui. Just these two second-class maids who stayed in a wealthy family. At the age of 13, village chief Kui spent 10 taels of silver. After that, they went to see the livestock. When they returned to the village, they planned to take some livestock back and buy a few donkey carts and ox carts. As a result, after seeing a few beautiful red date horses, village chief Kui asked about the price. This question actually shocked him. A red date horse costs 80 taels, and even ordinary farmers may not be able to save so much money in their lifetime. But thinking of the nobleman at home, village chief Kui decided that after the pearl bracelet was sold, he would buy a carriage for the nobleman and take back a few horses for the nobleman to travel. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 167. If he said that he completely trusted his brother-in-law, then village chief Kui would definitely not admit it. After all, people's hearts are hidden. He told his brother-in-law that the nobleman passed by Quijia village, but he didn't say that the nobleman was still in Quijia village. If something really happened, the nobleman was still in the village. After hearing the news, he could also avenge them and settle the villagers. Although these thoughts are dark, village chief Kui must think about everything clearly for the sake of the whole village. The men living in Quijia village are all from farming backgrounds, and they are all common people. If they really encounter someone powerful, hundreds of people can't fight them. Otherwise, why did village chief Kui bring so many people here? He told his brother-in-law that he brought so many people to tell his brother-in-law that everyone in the village knew about this matter and was waiting for money to repair the house. If something happened, there would be thousands of people making trouble. Moreover, the brother-in-law was also smart. He placed all the 100 people near their home in order to reassure village chief Kui. In this way, they did not say anything, but put each other's weaknesses in each other's hands, because if something went wrong, the 100 villagers would be the first to attack Zhao Guangqing's family. Zhao Guangqing dared to put his family in such a position, and he was 100% sure. Zhou Chun was even smarter. He knew that Zhao Guangqing dared to take such a valuable thing without a deed, and he was willing to risk his life on it, so he gave 1,000 taels of silver to reassure these people. Kui Mingshan had 100 taels of silver in his hand. He had never taken so much silver in his life. He was followed by more than a dozen strong men from the village. His father went to buy cattle and horses, saying that he could take a bull cart when he returned. Kui Mingshan's 100 taels of silver were not for anything else, but for buying daily necessities for the nobles. Thinking of the nobleman who admired plum blossoms in the snow that day and said that it would be best if he had a gukin, Kui Mingshan brought a dozen people to Chongguan Road in Wengxian town. This street is full of things prepared for those literati and poets, with books and some other things. It was the first time for others to come here, but Kui Mingshan, who had been out for fun with his uncle, was very calm. Kui Mingshan had also been to school before, but later he couldn't continue, but he could be considered literate. Looking at the shops around, he quickly found a shop called Xianyunju and walked in. The waiter who came up to greet him was smart, and he didn't look down on Kui Mingshan and his friends because they were dressed like ordinary farmers. Now that it had just snowed heavily in winter, if there were people coming and going in the shop, he would have listened. "Sir, what musical instrument do you want to see?" The shop was full of various musical instruments, including gukan, pipa, guhan, flute, and so on. It is said that there are 6 arts of a gentleman, and gukan is an instrument that many literati and poets can play. "I want to see the gukan," Kui Mingshan said. "Okay, come here and take a look. This is the gukan that our store just delivered at the end of last month. It is made by the most powerful master in our county, and the sound is also very nice. Do you want to try it?" The waiter was very enthusiastic, but Kui Mingshan looked embarrassed. He didn't understand these musical instruments, but after thinking about it, he bit his lip and said, "I want the most expensive one, the most expensive gukan in the store." "That's right, this is a gukan for a noble, how can I use a cheap one?" When the waiter heard it, his eyes lit up and he said quickly, "Of course our store has the most expensive one, but if I go upstairs and call the shopkeeper down, I can get a few cents cheaper." He asked the guest to wait here, and he hurried upstairs to call the shopkeeper. At this time, several scholars in thin clothes came in. They seemed to have ideas about musical instruments. After seeing Kui Mingshan standing in the store, they frowned and didn't understand why such farmers came to such a place and dirty the land in vain. The people Kui Mingshan brought were all outside, and they were just looking at the side from a distance. Kui Mingshan retracted his sight and waited for the waiter to come down. Sure enough, the waiter immediately brought down a slightly fat shopkeeper. The shopkeeper had heard the situation and was very enthusiastic towards Kui Mingshan after coming down. "Is this young brother going to buy a gukan? It just so happens that I recently received a special gukan, which is made of green sandalwood with a fresh and elegant fragrance. Green sandalwood is rare, but few people make gukans. It was because of this piece of wood that this green yi was made. Come on, take it out and show it to the young brother." The waiter had already taken out this green yi to show Kui Mingshan. It must be said that the gukan made of green sandalwood is extremely rare. Even on such a winter day, seeing such green really makes people feel good. "How much is this gukan?" Kui Mingshan was so excited when he thought that the nobleman would use this gukan. 2,000 taels of silver. The shopkeeper gave a price directly. This price was still cheap, and Kui Mingshan was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that the 100 taels of silver given by his father could not buy a zither. However, even if it was 2,000 taels of silver, Kui Mingshan had to buy it for the nobleman. "Buy it? But shopkeeper, I can only give you all the money after 3 days. How about I order the zither first?" I had seen my uncle settle accounts with people like this before. Kui Mingshan said this, which made the shopkeeper look embarrassed. At this time, a man wearing blue scholar's clothes said leisurely, "Brother Zhang, look at the declining world. No one dares to come to Xianyunju to buy musical instruments. Although this green sandalwood is not too expensive, it is also extremely rare. This gukan was made by a master craftsman. Of course, 1,000 taels is fine, but some people have no money in their pockets, but they still say these ridiculous things. Don't you think it's funny?" Brother Zhang, whom he called Brother Zhang, also glanced at Kui Mingshan and said, "Brother Li, don't be like this. This Lu Yi is good, but it must be worthy of a noble person. The new year is approaching. If Brother Zhang likes it, you can take it home and love it." But the man in blue scholar uniform shook his head and disagreed. "If such a person takes a fancy to this piano, it has already fallen into disgrace. If a young man takes it home, wouldn't it make people laugh?" When he said this, the other scholars laughed heartily, as if they were accustomed to mocking Kui Mingshan like this. The shopkeeper looked ugly, but he couldn't offend these scholars. After all, he still had to do business, so he said, "This little brother, if you don't have enough money, why don't you try another piano?" He would not ridicule Kui Mingshan, but Kui Mingshan looked at the group of scholars with his head raised and said involuntarily, "This Liu Yi is for the nobles to use." He said this, but the scholars just looked at him. No one wanted to talk to a farmer. Just looking at him was already a gift. When they became officials and prime ministers in the future, they would naturally look down upon them even more. Foraging in the ground. Brother Zheng, it's really a good time to enjoy the plum blossoms today, and your poem is also a good one. When the sun gets thinner, the greenery closes early, and the tangerine trees bloom day and night. The flowers and trees in the snow house are moistened overnight, and the trees are scattered with light thunder when they are first sold. Someone else chanted it again, and then the scholar next to him also praised it. Brother Zheng, this poem is really a good poem. What a poem! These scholars have never paid attention to farmers like Kui Mingshan, so they naturally ignored Kui Mingshan. But Kui Mingshan's eyes were burning. He looked at the leisurely and contented appearance of these scholars. He should have been afraid and timid at first, but after meeting the nobles, he didn't feel that these people had anything worthy of him. Dear! The nobles are so aloof, yet they treat them with gentleness and courtesy. There are hundreds of such scholars in Wengxian town, so why are they so arrogant? What sour verses are written? It doesn't look like it was written by a noble person. Even a person like him can understand the noble person's meaning instantly. It's not like these scholars who just like these useless poems. Realizing that the farmer hadn't left yet and was still looking at them, the scholar in blue robe raised his eyebrows again. Look at this brother, you are not a cheen player. If you can't afford a cheen, forget it. Why are you asking for trouble here? The paladin should be ridiculed, but the scholar didn't think anything of it. How could something as elegant as a piano fall into the hands of such a peasant? What a waste of resources. But Kui Mingshan was not afraid and faced the scholar's ridicule. He just looked at these scholars who were completely different from him and said, "I can't play the piano. I want to buy this green ripple for the nobles. The nobles like to enjoy the snow and plum blossoms. They once said, 'How can you get the fragrance of plum blossoms without being chilled to the bone? You guys look down on me, a farmer, but what you eat is the food grown by the farmers, and what you wear is the cloth carefully woven by the embroiderers. If you come to Xianyanju, I can come too.'" Because of his youth, Kui Mingshan was not afraid of facing these people, but as soon as he said these words, the whole store fell silent. Several scholars were shocked by those two simple lines of poetry. With only these two lines of poetry left in their minds, they began to ponder. Kui Mingshan took out 100 taels of silver and looked at the store owner. "I'll use this 100 taels of silver as a deposit, and I'll come over to pick up Liu Yi in 3 days. What do you think, shopkeeper?" When the shopkeeper saw that the other party was really rich and was willing to give 100 taels of silver as a deposit, his face suddenly lit up with a smile. "Of course, no problem, I'll write you a deed right now, and you can just come and pick up the piano in 3 days. 2,000 taels of silver, such an expensive green ripple, is actually difficult to sell in Wengxian town." Originally, the shopkeeper planned to send someone to Jiangnan to sell it, but now that it can be sold, it is considered good. After a while, the deed was written. Kui Mingshan read the deed and made sure that there was no problem. Then he was about to leave, but he did not expect to be blocked by these scholars who reacted. "Brother, it was my fault just now. I apologize to you, Xiao Sheng." The scholar in blue robe actually gave Kui Mingshan a gift, and his words were very sincere. At this time, he looked at Kui Mingshan with curiosity in his eyes. "I don't know who wrote the poem you just said. Is there any chance that we can meet each other?" In response, Kui Mingshan shook his head coldly and said, "Is the name of a noble person something that you and I can just know casually?" After he finished speaking, he turned around and left, which made the scholars unable to react, and they were all extremely disappointed. Just now they ridiculed the peasants for not being worthy of Lu Yi, and now they are ridiculed by the peasants for being unworthy of noble people. As expected, things have turned. Kui Mingshan walked forward, feeling that his heart was about to beat out of his chest, and the appearance of a nobleman appeared in his mind involuntarily. He thought, if the nobleman were here, these scholars must have knelt at the nobleman's feet one by one, right? Their arrogance is nothing to mention in front of noble people. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 168. Brother Ming, didn't you say you wanted to buy a piano? Why didn't you buy it? An elder brother from the village came around to ask, and Kui Mingshan answered confidently. The money was not enough. After a few days, my father brought the money, so they took the piano back together and bought the best piano for the noble man. As soon as this was said, everyone around said that it was appropriate. After all, the noble people stayed in their village, and there were not many good things in the village. That is, the red plum could be seen. Now people in the village said that it was the old village in the past. God bless them, otherwise the nobleman would have been bored living in their village and would have left long ago. Kui Mingshan took his people to meet his father and found that his father had bought 2 little maids. They looked pretty and should be serving the nobles, but the nobles didn't know whether they would like these 2 little girls. After that, I went to the carpenter's shop to reserve a donkey cart and a luxurious carriage. If you want to buy an ox cart these days, you can buy it directly, but there are many people in the village who want it, so it is natural to make a reservation, and the carriage also takes time to make. There were several masters and apprentices working together in the carpentry shop. There was such a big business before the end of the year, with a business of 200 taels of silver. They directly asked them to pat their chests and promise that in 3 days the carriage would be ready. The donkey cart has been prepared, and village chief Kui just has to come and pick it up. Village chief Kui also asked his son why he returned empty-handed. After knowing that the Lu Yi his son was interested in cost 2,000 taels of silver, he thought it was normal. This noble thing was naturally very expensive, so he didn't say much. Everyone who followed in the village was beaming with joy. After all, if the thatched huts could be renovated after the new year, they would have tile-roofed houses to live in. Who could not be happy? It's daytime again, and Wengxian town is very lively this day. Of course, the most important thing is that the Shui family of the imperial merchants also arrived in Wengxian town today. Wengxian town is the only way to the capital, and it has a good meaning. So many businessmen will stay here. Now the Shui family of Huangshang is in the largest restaurant in Wengxian town and has booked the entire restaurant. At the window on the 3rd floor of Ziwixian building, a young man wearing a red brocade robe was looking at the falling snow outside the window, which was really boring. Uncle Joe, if I had known that shopping for goods would be so boring, I wouldn't have come out with you. There was snow all the way, so forget about the bumps, and I didn't encounter anything interesting. Sister, please ask your father and mother to collect these rare treasures from the world. But the other concubines are all from aristocratic families, and if there are really rare treasures, they would have already been in their hands. Is it our turn? This young man's name is Shui Baokang. He is 16 years old this year, but he is already at the age where he could start a family and start a business and do things in ancient times. He came all the way this time to find various treasures for his sister, so that he could make a splash at the Queen Mother's banquet. But after hearing some news, I felt that I had found the best thing, and I was afraid that other aristocratic families would not like it. When my sister was able to enter the palace, it was also because of the rare floods in the south of the Yangtze River. My father opened a warehouse to store grain, which directly saved the people of the 2 cities. His Majesty later learned about this and announced that my sister had entered the palace and became the empress. The Shui family also became an imperial merchant. But if compared with those concubines from big families, I'm afraid they can't even compare to the root of their nails. Young master, please don't say that. The aristocratic family has a solid foundation, but our Shui family has a reputation in front of His Majesty. If our Shui family doesn't make good preparations for the Queen Mother's birthday banquet, we will be in trouble when the time comes. It's hard for the Empress to lose her. Even if His Majesty doesn't care about our good things, that's our intention. This trip was to go to the capital, so I brought a lot of good things with me and collected them along the way. Although Manager Joe also felt that these things were not rare enough, the master said that rare playthings should be searched for and money should be brought with them. The Shui family transported 2 million taels of silver into the palace in batches by land and sea. In the year, there were rumors that His Majesty wanted to attack the Turks, but was blocked by the important ministers in the DPRK on the grounds of insufficient military resources. This matter was widely circulated among the people, so the head of the family secretly prepared the money in order to give it to His Majesty through the Queen Mother. So no matter how good this treasure is, it is just the icing on the cake. Okay, anyway, I don't think there is anything interesting in Wengxian town. When I get to the capital this time, I will have a good time, but I don't know if I will be able to see my sister. When my sister became a queen, the whole family followed her to win glory. She also became an imperial merchant, and everyone was in awe of her. However, Shui Baoken was still childish as before. He would not bully others just because there was a queen in the family. He was just worried about whether his sister's life in the palace was going well. Shui Baoken was really worried that her sister had not had a child for 3 years after entering the palace. Such a topic was something that Steward Joe couldn't talk about. Then a young steward came over to report that the shopkeeper of Jinlu in Wengxian town had come to visit and that rare and good things had been sent to him. Young master, I'm going to see what good things Zhou Chengui has sent me. As soon as he said this, Shui Baoken waved his hands directly. I'm bored too. Send them over here too. Let me see what good things can be found in a small town like this. Coming from Jiangnan, Shui Baoken saw a lot of good things along the way. What good things could be found in such a small town with no big people? Soon, Zhou Chun came over holding a box, which was replaced by the most expensive rosewood box, making people full of expectations for the contents inside. This is our young master, coming to the capital with us this time. Manager Zhou introduced that he has the same surname as Zhou Chun, so he is considered the family member, so he takes care of him every time he comes here. Zhou Chun has met Master Shui. Zhou Chun's eyes lit up and he put the box on the table. Shui Baoken nodded casually and looked at the box on the table. What's inside? Zhou Chun also smiled. Master Shui will know once you open it. With these words, Shui Baoken became curious about the contents inside, so he reached out and opened the box, revealing the round pearl bracelet. The white and tender color was even more dazzling on the red chip, which made Shui Baoken I was shocked immediately. I didn't expect that such a small place would really have interesting things. He reached out and took out the pearl bracelet and held it in his hand. At this moment, he happened to be sitting by the window. The snowflakes outside the window no longer floated, and there was actually a little more sunlight falling on the string of pearls. It gives each bead a radiant beauty. It is not only a pure soft light color, but also has several colors flowing beautifully on it. It is simply impossible to take your eyes away. Housekeeper Joe didn't expect Zhou Chun to get such a good thing. He took a look at him and saw the young master couldn't put it down, and felt that the young master might like this thing. Okay. This bracelet is great. Just a tribute to my sister. Shui Baoken has also seen a lot of good things. After all, he was born in the Shui family, a big merchant. Now he is very happy to see such a perfect pearl bracelet. After all, everything in this world pursues perfection, and these beads are perfect in terms of color, size, and quantity, and the brilliant color under the sun is enough to increase its worth. Master Xue can do it if he likes it. As soon as he saw this scene, Jochun knew that the matter was done. Master Xue was busy tasting the pearl bracelet in his hand and ignored Jochun, which Jochun had long been used to. It was Butler Joe who took Jochun out, leaving Master Xue alone to play with the pearl bracelet. Butler Joe had also seen the world, so he spoke after he came out. I don't care about the origin of this pearl bracelet. Since the young master is interested in it, it must be from the Xue family. Please give me a price. Jochun knew it was done and immediately smiled. Looking at what Brother Joe said, the origin of this pearl bracelet is also simple. It was a nobleman who traveled to the surrounding villages. He saw that the people in the village were naked and had no roof to cover their bodies, so he left this pearl bracelet behind. I want to exchange some money for them to repair their houses. As a means of livelihood, it is because of the kindness of such a noble person that this good thing falls into my hands. Brother Joe, just give it to them as long as it allows the people in the village to have a good time. Just cover your head with a tile. As soon as these words came out, housekeeper Joe also laughed as expected, knowing that Jochun would not hide it from him, and there was a reason for the origin of such a good thing. Thinking that the Queen Mother would report it to the Queen Mother would be happy, so she spoke. Such a good thing is rare in the world. Of course I can't treat you badly, so I will give you 1 in 10,000. How about your 10,001 tael of gold? That's right. How can such a gift to the Queen Mother be cheap? The price still has to be a good sign. Of course I listened to Brother Joe, and don't worry, Brother Joe, I am definitely not lying. All these 10,001 taels of gold will be handed over to the village chief of Quijia village, so that Chief Kui can use it to repair the houses in the village. This matter will definitely be reported to the county magistrate in the spring of next year, so don't worry. This is a direct guarantee. Jochun also knows what money can be earned and what cannot. Okay, I know you are smart, so let me get it. In order to buy a birthday gift for the Queen Mother this time, it can be said that in addition to 2 million silver, the Xue family also brought millions of silver coins to buy gifts. Jochun soon had a deed in his hand, and the gold and silver would be sent directly to Jochun's store. After all, they had guards and bodyguards who came and went to do business. With a large number of people, they were not afraid of money problems. It's just that if the villagers want to take these 10,000 taels of gold home, they will definitely store it in the bank in Wengxian town until the beginning of next year. So Zhao Guangqing also knew the news, and Jochun didn't hide it. The Xue family gave 10,001 taels of gold as a reward. They will send the silver to the store in the afternoon. You tell your brother-in-law and ask your brother-in-law to bring someone to pick it up. If there is any extra, it will be deposited directly in the bank for the next year. Now that the snow has stopped, there's no rush to repair the house. Jochun didn't receive any money, so Zhao Guangqing naturally praised his father-in-law in every possible way, and finally hurried back home with a smile. Village Chief Kui, who has been here for 3 days, heard the latest news about his brother-in-law. The pearl bracelet was taken away by the Xue family. Brother-in-law, 10,000 taels of gold will be sent to the Jinlu this afternoon. Dad tells you to go and get it with your brothers. After you get it, deposit it into the bank. Village Chief Kui stood up and was so surprised that with this money, the villagers can live in tile-roofed houses in the spring. No more hunger and cold in the future. With this money, we can buy a lot of land and cattle, and then the life of the people in the village will be better. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 169. In the afternoon, village chief Kui took the villagers to the Golden House. Because they needed a lot of money this time, they were naturally careful. Jo-chun also met the village chief, who was already old. The two talked a few words. Specifically, he said that if they needed to buy materials for building houses in the new year, he could help, and the price was also favorable. After all, if a village was going to build a house, it would naturally be a discount. Then I will rely more on Manager Joe. After the new year, village chief Kui was very grateful. He knew that Manager Joe had a wide network of connections, and it would be good if he could rely on him. After counting the silver and money, there were gold and silver. In a small town like theirs, silver bills were not easy to circulate. Therefore, many peddlers came with cash. In addition, this is the only way to the capital, and there are few bandit problems, so it is generally the safest. After going to the bank, village chief Kui left 10,000 taels of silver, and then deposited the remaining gold in the bank, waiting to come back in the spring of next year to buy things and build houses. However, the remaining money seemed to be a lot, but it was spent quickly. They first went to buy back the green ripple that Kui Mingshan had ordered before. As a result, after seeing other musical instruments, they bought white jade flute and green bamboo flute by the way. These were the instruments that nobles liked. Because they were beautiful, they bought them together and spent more than 3,000 taels of silver. After buying these, they went to the bookstore and bought the 4 treasures of the study. They were all the most expensive ones and spent thousands of taels of silver. Not only that, there were also things related to daily life, all of which were bought at the most expensive, and then they would be replaced for the nobles. The shopkeepers who sold things were also very surprised. They didn't understand how these people who looked like farmers could take out so much money to buy such expensive items. But businessmen would sell to whoever paid, and everyone was very enthusiastic. Everyone went to the market first and brought the donkey cart that they had ordered long ago, which was just enough to transport things. Then they planned to buy donkeys and cattle and sheep tomorrow to take home. There was a good-looking horse carriage and 10 ox carts in total. When they returned, it would be very convenient for everyone to travel. Because of the new year, the village chief bought a lot of food and cloth, which would be distributed to the people in the village. The money was spent like water, but the village chief did not feel sorry. Expensive things were purchased for nobles. The food and cloth they bought filled the cart, and they spent less than 300 taels of silver. Village chief Kui also planned to buy things for Xietingzhou, and Kui Zhenshan in the village was stunned. When the nobleman said to move the beans from the cellar, Kui Zhenshan still didn't understand. After moving them up, he opened the jar and saw the white and tender sprouts inside. He had seen the branches and leaves of beans, but they didn't look like this. This thing can be eaten after stir-frying and mixing. It is a light vegetarian dish in winter. After Xietingzhou said this, and Niang immediately understood what this thing was for, and then she took some out quickly, and then went to the kitchen. In less than 10 minutes, she brought up the finished bean sprouts. The bean sprouts in ancient times are no different from those in modern times. After tasting them, Xietingzhou looked at Kui Zhenshan. I see that Kuijia village has no way to make a living. Farming depends on the mood of God. Now this thing is bean sprouts, which grow in water. I will give it to you to pass on to the villagers in the village and exchange some silver for a living. After these words came out, Kui Zhenshan didn't understand what the nobleman meant. There are no fresh vegetables in winter. The bean sprouts look so fresh and tender. If they are sold to rich people, they will be worth a lot. If they are just sold on the street, they can also make some money. This is the way to make a living. The nobleman actually taught them directly. Nobleman. Thank you. I thank you on behalf of all the villagers in the village. With a plop, Kui Zhenshan knelt on the ground, and Niang and others beside him also knelt down, thanking the nobleman for bringing them this way to make a living. Even if the bean sprouts are learned by others in the future, their village can also earn the first batch of silver money. A small recipe is enough for the people in the village to spend this winter in wealth. If it was before, everyone would definitely not leave the village before winter, but now with this recipe, they made bean sprouts and transported them to Wengxian town. Then everyone can make hundreds of dollars during the new year, and they will have a livelihood for the next year. It is better to teach a man how to fish than to give him a fish. Xie Zhou knew that the pearl bracelet he gave could be exchanged for a lot of money, but it was not a long-term solution. Distribute this to the villagers in the village to taste, and it will be considered as sharing my joy. Xie Zhou gave instructions, and the Kui family naturally made arrangements quickly, so Kui Zhenshan took these bean sprouts and knocked on the doors of the villagers from house to house. Everyone got a small bowl. After learning that this thing was made by a noble, called bean sprouts, and it was something that only nobles could eat, the villagers were very surprised. Especially when they learned from Kui Zhenshan that the noble allowed them to make bean sprouts and taught them how to make them, all the villagers who received bean sprouts immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed with bean sprouts in their hands. Kui Zhenshan did not stop him, because only in this way could the gratitude in the hearts of the villagers be expressed. One by one, the villagers got bean sprouts, and they were extremely grateful. Even if there was only a small bowl, they were very happy. What's more, they could get the recipe of the noble in the future. These days, as long as a family has a special recipe, they can eat for a lifetime, and even their descendants can live on the recipe of their ancestors. The noble is now willing to give them a recipe for the whole village to use, so the people of Kuijia village are naturally the happiest. After Kui Zhenshan left, every family held an emergency meeting, of course, about bean sprouts. No one is allowed to tell anyone about bean sprouts. Not even relatives and friends outside the village. This is the recipe bestowed by the noble, for the people of Kuijia village. On the second day, Xie Zhou just went out and heard a noise at the door. What noise? Xie Zhou asked Kui Zhenshan beside him, but Kui Zhenshan knelt on the ground. Sir, outside the door are all villagers. After tasting bean sprouts last night, they came to kneel down and thank you. They are waiting for you to wake up. It was a sincere thank you. After eating the bean sprouts, they understood the preciousness of this thing, so everyone came to kneel down and thank Ting Zhou early in the morning. In that case, I will meet him. Xie Zhou walked over, and the door was opened by Kui Zhenshan. The noisy crowd outside the door suddenly fell silent. Then, no one knew who started it, and everyone knelt in front of Kui's door tacitly. Thank you for the good prescription. Someone shouted loudly, and then everyone shouted the same words. They kowtowed and excitedly expressed their gratitude. There were endless people in front of them, almost kneeling at the door of Kui's house. These people were grateful at all. They knew that they could not give you anything to make you happy, so the only thing they could do was to come and kneel down to thank you. Xie Zhou looked at the linen clothes on these people, thinking about the severe cold now. They didn't know how long they had been freezing outside. Everyone's face was red, but they couldn't hide their excitement. Today, Xie Zhou wore a red robe, which was the style of Fiifu. There were 4 clawed golden dragons wrapped around his chest and shoulders, which made people dare not look directly at him. In such a village, who would dare to wear such a dragon outside? I'm afraid something would happen at the first time. I already know your intentions. It's very cold, so you can go home. Xie Zhou spoke, and his clear voice immediately covered the voices of thanks from everyone. Everyone fell silent, and then Xie Zhou turned around and returned to the yard without waiting for these people to react. If he stood there, those people would have been kneeling there. As soon as he left, as expected, the villagers began to stand up, but everyone had a smile on their faces. This year, the village could meet such a noble person, which was really a blessing from the ancestors. Mom, I saw the noble's clothes, red with golden clouds on them. Mom, the noble looks like a fairy. Some of the children were secretly looking at Xietingzhou, and now they were talking childishly, so their parents covered their mouths. They couldn't disturb the noble, who had just gotten up. Everyone began to disperse, and Xietingzhou also came to the lobby to wash up. He knew that it was time for him to leave. Although it was winter, he had already understood the situation around him. If he continued to stay in Quijia village, it would cause trouble. It would be better to leave. He already knew that the most prosperous place near Quijia village was Wengxian town, so he planned to go to Wengxian town next. But he couldn't go directly, and he still had to make arrangements. At this moment, Xietingzhou didn't know that village chief Kui was already on his way back with more than a dozen donkey carts and ox carts, and there was also a carriage purchased specifically for Xietingzhou, pulled by 2 red date horses. Every villager had a happy face. Originally, they bought 10 donkey carts, but there were too many things and they were not enough, so they bought ox carts. This time, although everyone was still walking on the ground and the carts were full of goods, everyone was happy because they would give these to their families. It would take another day to get home, but everyone was very happy. The villagers were also busy now. After knowing that bean sprouts came from beans, everyone took out the beans, and then Kui Zhenshan left his younger brother Kui Yongshan to serve the nobleman, and went to teach everyone how to grow bean sprouts. This cannot be taught once, and you have to go and check every day, so every time you go to each house, you will be surrounded by enthusiasm. As long as they can grow bean sprouts in a few days, if they can sell them in the county, they can also be exchanged for hundreds of dollars. Who doesn't want to make this money? When the villagers were busy, when it got dark, village chief Kui took 100 strong men in the village back to the village on the snow. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 170. This night is very lively for the people of Quijia village. The men who went out have returned home and even brought cloth and New Year food. Can you not make everyone happy? The Kui family was also happy. Seeing village chief Kui returning home with a full load, Mrs. Kui was smiling from ear to ear. However, in order not to disturb the nobleman's rest, everyone moved lightly. Let's rest first. We'll talk about anything tomorrow. It's more important for you to be noble. After walking for a day, I was tired. Village chief Kui carried it all in one breath, so he let everyone repair first. The head of the family has said this, what else can everyone do? Of course I was obedient and went to rest. Xietingzhou is not in the house on the east side. He has returned to the modern world. Congratulations to the host for successfully traveling through time and space 3 times. The host will be specially rewarded with a lucky draw. Standing in the familiar modern study room, Xietingzhou saw the lottery board on the virtual screen in front of him. To be honest, it was no different from the lottery board used in supermarket activities. It took 3 successful time travels to open such a lottery. Xietingzhou took a look at the choices above: Dolly Pill, Universal Robot, Intensive Cultivation, Childbirth Pill. The system space increased by 10 square meters, the system warehouse increased by 20 square meters, the system mall was opened, etc. At this moment, Xietingzhou finally understood why this thing cannot be known in the modern world. Just the things in it, if taken to the modern world, are enough to change the world, but the system has a restrictive function and does not allow this to happen. Of things. After checking the items on these lottery boards, Xietingzhou said in his heart, lottery. Following Xietingzhou's words, the huge turntable started spinning, and then turned rapidly. When the big turntable was turning, I heard Xietingzhou say stop, and then the turntable stopped, and the pointer fell on a place. Universal Robot. When Xietingzhou saw the lottery, he was stunned for a moment, and then the system gave the information. Universal Robot, It has super powerful defense functions and can protect the life and property safety of the host at any time. It has the destructive functions of various cold weapons and hot weapons. Each host can only have one. That's right. This thing is still a limited edition. Xieting Zhou thought that as a noble person in ancient times, he must have someone to protect him. This universal robot is the best existence. Summon a universal robot. The system asked, and Xieting Zhou gave an answer. Soon, in the next second, a completely silver robot appeared in the study. This robot exuded a cold light, but it was flowing. It stood there with its eyes closed and was very technological. Feel. Xieting Zhou's mind was filled with the rules for using this universal robot in an instant, and he immediately knew how to use this thing. Simulated human bodyguard form. After the universal robot was extracted, it was automatically bound to its master, and Xieting Zhou was his master. Following Xieting Zhou's order, the silver robot began to imitate the human form, and soon changed from a silver high-tech look to a 1.9-meter strong man in a black suit and sunglasses, giving people a very oppressive feeling. Yes, this thing has a mimic function. Not only that, but there are various thermal weapons hidden in his body. If in ancient times, the kind that could directly kill people crazy is in modern times. It is also a super high-tech one. Put it into the system warehouse. Xieting Zhou already knew how to use this thing, so he didn't find it interesting. He changed his clothes and then came to the living room. After resting for a while, he knocked on Wei Qiang's bedroom door. Wei Qiang came out in her pajamas and hugged Xieting Zhou's neck. "Come back so late again? I'm already asleep." Wei Qiang complained, but she still buried her whole body on Xieting Zhou's body. Her legs had spontaneously wrapped around Xieting Zhou's waist. Xieting Zhou hugged her and laughed. "Even if I come back during the day, you will still be at work. When we move to a new house in the future, I will ask my parents to come to Shangjing City to stay with you, so you won't be so lonely. The most important thing is that his parents are with his girlfriend, and Xieting Zhou can rest assured that his future time travel will definitely be going on without anyone around his girlfriend. These things cannot be spoken, so naturally he can only do it well, protect this little girl. Yeah, so we all have to work hard. Mom called us during the day and asked if we were tired from work recently and if we had any money. She offered to send us money, but I refused." Without opening her eyes, Wei Qiang hung on her boyfriend tiredly, talking about things at home. Although the Xie family and his wife were Xieting Zhou's parents, she grew up calling her parents, and the Xie family and her husband also doted on her. Very well. When I make money and buy a big house, I'll give them a surprise. Xieting Zhou turned his head and kissed Wei Qiang. Seeing his sleepy girlfriend, he hugged her and placed her in a soft quilt. The two snuggled together and fell asleep like before. When Wei Qiang woke up the next morning, if she hadn't seen her boyfriend's message, she would have thought that last night was a dream. However, she also understood that her boyfriend had just found a job with a monthly salary of 30,000 yuan and must be very busy, so this girlfriend also needs to be considerate. She got up, packed herself up and went to work. Apart from being clingy in front of Xieting Zhou, she would not be bullied casually outside. Xieting Zhou returned to the Yang dynasty, and he bought a lot of ancient clothes in the modern world. After all, it happened to be spring in the world over there. There was a big deal of Hanfu in winter. Xieting Zhou bought a lot, and now he can change it every day. After returning this time, Xieting Zhou summoned a universal robot, and then asked the robot to imitate a black ancient bunt. Just by looking at it, he knew that he was a person with strong martial arts ability. He was 1.8 meters tall, as tall as Xieting Zhou, but he looked very oppressive. Xieting Zhou named this universal robot Xie Yi. When Kui Zhenshan and Kui Yongshan were waiting at the door of the nobleman's house early, they heard a movement and the door was opened. A tall man who was more than one head taller than them opened the door. His cold face was expressionless, and his skin was a well-proportioned dark color, but it was full of oppression. For a moment, Kui Zhenshan and Kui Yongshan did not dare to move. They just stared blankly at the man in front of them, thinking that the nobleman always had people giving him things when he lived here. The man in front of them might be the nobleman's slave. Thinking of the two healthy servants his father brought back yesterday, and looking at the one in front of him, Kui Zhenshan immediately knew that the nobleman must look down on the slaves his father bought. Even the nobleman's servants looked so powerful, even more powerful than those in Wengxian town. Some officials have even stronger auras. Xie Yi, let them in. Inside, Xie Tingzhou spoke, and Xie Yike let them in. As a high-tech universal robot, he knew what he should do and what he wanted to do. His master's orders must be completed. Kui Zhenshan and Kui Yongshan then lowered their heads and went in. They saw that the nobleman had changed into a new set of clothes. This time it was a moon-white brocade robe, which made the nobleman look as beautiful as the bright moon in the sky. The white cloak was covered with fur and soft hair. You can't tell what the hair is, but it gives people an extremely expensive feeling. My lord, please go to the lobby to wash up. Kui Zhenshan did not dare to say anything more and walked out to the lobby with Xie Tingzhou and Xie Yi. Kui Yongshan, Meng Niang, and Kui Yongshan's pregnant wife who came in later helped the nobleman clean up the room. The two women naturally had to deal with the quilt and clothes. Meng Niang lowered her head to tidy up the quilt, while the third daughter-in-law put the clothes of the nobles on the wood. Such expensive clothes meant that the nobles changed one piece a day. If they were peasants like them, people may not be willing to wear it a few times in their lives. Kui Yongshan is responsible for brushing gongtong and other things, and everyone has a clear division of labor. When Xie Tingzhou arrived at the lobby, village chief Kui had already gotten up early and was waiting. After seeing the servant beside the nobleman, he knew that his guess was correct. The nobleman had been staying in Quijia village for some time, and he was probably bored. I'm afraid I'll leave in a few days. Thinking of this, village chief Kui was not afraid, but just a little regretful. The things used for bathing Xie Tingzhou were once again completely new. They were all replaced by the most expensive copper basins and mirrors in Wengxian town. Even the towels were changed into the softest cotton. When Xie Tingzhou finished washing, the table was full of breakfast. No matter how much Xie Tingzhou uses it, the Kui family always arranges a table every time. This time, with Xie Yi standing behind Xie Tingzhou, the robot naturally does not need to eat. The two little girls also put on the clothes that village chief Kui bought yesterday to serve Xie Tingzhou. However, neither of them expected that they would be sold from a wealthy family, bought by farmers, and end up serving such a fairy. Xie Tingzhou just took a look at something, and the two maids started to serve him with a very eye-catching look. It was convenient without saying anything. Xie Tingzhou took this matter of course. After eating, he changed to the study room to talk. Village chief Kui presented 5,000 taels of silver to the table. My lord, the pearl bracelet you gave to the village before has been exchanged for some silver. I know that your lord is not short of money, but you still need the broken silver when you are away from home. You can also take out the broken silver that was exchanged from the bank. Reward others. Next time, don't give the pearl bracelet directly, that is, to village chief Kui. If you give it to an ordinary farmer, I am afraid that the farmer's family will be destroyed directly because of such a pearl bracelet. What kind of status deserves what kind of things? If a poor family gets good things, it will be a fatal disaster. Xie Tingzhou naturally understood what village chief Kui meant and remained silent while Xie Yi took the silver. Before, I thought that my stupid sons would not be safe in serving the nobleman. This time when I went to Wengxian town, I took it upon myself to buy a carriage, 2 healthy servants, and 2 maids for the nobleman. This is a personal contract, and the nobleman will feel free to deal with it. Village chief Kui saw that the nobleman wanted to conceal his identity, otherwise he would not be able to live in their village anonymously for such a long time, so he took out another thing and put it on the table. The nobleman stayed in my Kwijia village. The entire Kwijia village is very grateful. Thinking that the nobleman is out alone and wants to hide his identity, I passed by Shuifeng County and specially asked for 2 farmers' household registrations. The nobleman can use it with confidence. It has to be said that village chief Kui is a smart man. Although he saw that Xietingzhou could not be offended, he also found that there were servants around Xietingzhou but did not show up. Then something must have happened. It would be better to go to the villages and towns now. If he arrived in areas outside, household registration is required. I don't know if the noble's household registration is safe, or if his name needs to be kept anonymous, so village chief Kui went directly to the county magistrate and used his connections to get 2 farmers' household registrations. Whether he gives it or not is his business, and whether he uses it or not is his business. Xietingzhou didn't expect that the household registration matter would be solved just like this, which made him feel quite comfortable. Now if he goes to other places in the Great Yang dynasty, he can also settle down smoothly. However, with Xie, Xietingzhou stopped talking. Xie took these things and said, "I thank village chief Kui on behalf of my master." He said this, which made village chief Kui think that he was right. The nobleman was going to leave Kwijia village.